So let's get going. First thing, we have a project here. It's running, and I'm just gonna make sure that we don't have some dead code. And the app is running right here. So you can add some to-dos. So learn TypeScript, that you should do always, and you can do like learn JavaScript as well. So that's also really important. And watch the webinar. Yeah, this is also really important. Watch them and join our online training, for example. Okay, so I can add those, right? And then I can delete, and then you can delete them, and then, for example, if you unsubscribe, nothing is happening anymore. Okay, so basically this app is a JavaScript app. We can go in the code here and we see that, yeah, I already moved that into TS, but if you open the app, there is really nothing TypeScript related yet. So last week I shown you that we have three steps. We have three steps to migrate. There are three steps to migrate a JavaScript project into TypeScript. The first step is, yeah, we just rename. We create a TS config, and then we rename all the file from JS to TS. So that's done. That's done, right? And then the second step is basically, hey, in the first step, still there's something we needed to do, is to go here and then let the no implicit any to false. Okay, so that's it. Now the step we are at here is the second step, where we go and then we say, okay, we're going to make sure that the no implicit any is a true. So that's the second step, the first part of the second step. Okay, but before I do that, I want to put those two files next to each other, and you will see what is happening here. So let's go back to false, and let me open the util file. Okay, so let me make that side by side, so you should be able to see what is happening right here. Okay, so here I have a function that renders to do, right? That's pretty simple. And that function, if you read that function, as a JavaScript developer, what you see is, well, there is a collection. Well, okay, there is a length, which means that collection here could be either an array or an object that has a property length, or a string. You see what I'm saying? So you start guessing the things. And then here you have a function. So you have a loop that basically loop through the list of in the collection and then render this. Okay. But if I go here in this configuration file and I turn that into true, so now I'm just saying like no implicit any. You cannot have no implicit any anymore. So it means that you have to tell me, even if it's any, you have to actually go here and then say, this is any, if it's any, right? So this already, it's the first step to in the second part to say, let's make sure that we type everything. So we just don't assume it's any, because any is just the normal JavaScript thing, right? So if I do that, once I did it, I put any here. We're gonna come back to it later. But if I go now in the entry point of the app, so that's the entry point, I can see that I have some, not errors really. Those are like mostly warning, because mind you, the app is still working as we're talking right now. So let me make sure that I put the app next to the thing, and you can see that the app is still working. So this is basically, as I mentioned last week, we're documenting our code. It's documentation, okay? So let me make sure that I have you on site here. So we're documenting our code. So let's go back here. What do we have? We have another set of things that we need to fix here. the first question is, what will be the type of this? What is this, right? So this is document query selector input. So we basically we're querying the DOM to retrieve that input. Okay, so technically here you can clearly see that this is a DOM element. Okay, but before I go there, I want to make sure that I actually set up my project properly, because inside the README, because if you got the thing, there are two more things that I need to do. So we already set up implicit init true, and I'm going to put strict to null check to true and strict as well. Okay, so I can take this here and then say strict null check is true. That's already, I'm already taking it on to another level in terms of strictness in my code, okay? So let's now go back inside our code and fix the thing. So here, inside apps, I can see that, well, I still need to show you this because you might have missed this part. So let me go back inside my tsconfig for a second. Let me turn that to false. And strict null check to false as well. Okay. So when I do this, and I'm gonna oh yeah, I didn't need to close it actually. So see this, there is no error whatsoever, but maybe this only. You see the state is red. So if I go back here and then turn that again to false, you can see that on the, I just need to refresh a little bit and this is gone. I have those two, yeah, but those two are the editor actually helping you in a little bit, but he doesn't know everything. So part of the exercise was turn that to true, turn this to true, and turn this to true. Okay, that's one step. And as you can see on the right, my code becomes red. Things are red here. Okay, so that red here means like we're going to fix that. So the first step is, let's do this. We have this DOM here. What could you say that is? Okay, I want to hear from you. Tell me, what do you think that thing is? What is the type of it? Yes, you did it, so help me out. I want you to type. I'm gonna wait a little bit because I know that you know. So I'm going to type here and just say this is supposed to be HTML. As you can see, there is a set of types for the HTML documents, right? So I can say here HTML input element, right? That's what that thing is. It's an input element, okay? So this is one way of putting it. Yeah, HTML element. See, now I see people saying something like HTML element. That's true. HTML element, you could say that, but more precisely, okay? So let me make sure that you can show this. Yeah, as you can see, tabs loss. Yeah, yeah. It's basically what it's supposed to be here, right? So what we're going to do is, you can either do that, so you can put it as HTML element like this, or you can actually do this as well. I'm gonna go here and then just put it like this. Okay, you can also do this, right? So once you do this, if I go here now, I can say I have access to that value, right? So if you say HTML input element, you're being super specific about the thing, right? Okay, so the next one here is what? It's a button. So we can just say HTML button. Okay, same thing. So what is unsubscribe? Unsubscribe is also a button, so that you're gonna go inside the index and then you look for the class unsubscribe. It is a button. Okay, so if we put them side by side, so we can see that here we have same thing, HTML. button element. Okay, and the last one is to-dos here. What is it? What is actually those to-dos? So we see we have a URL here, and then it has a class to do. So what is how would you type that? What do you think that thing is? I'm gonna wait again because I know you know. So help me out. Yeah, help me out. So yeah, you have Todd just mentioned that indeed HTML element is partly correct, but you won't be that precise, and you just better use HTML input element that's indeed inherit from HTML element. That's a good input right there. So Jerome just mentioned HTML LU list element. So well, this indeed you have HTML list element. Well, okay. What do you think of people? Keep pushing. Share with me. What do you have? Yours just said HTML LU list element. Okay, so we can go here, and indeed, if you go here, you can say this is as HTML. So what do we have as option? We have the LU list element. You also have ordered list. What is it? Let me check that. We have other things here. So HTML collection element, Anthony said. What else do we have? We have order list, something like that as well. Let me check here. Yeah, so we have this tree here. So I'm gonna show you. So we have the HTML list element, HTML list element. So and O list element as well, as you can see here, and we have the U list element. We're gonna use the U list element here. Okay, so what is he saying? So we're good. So now we have our types. We typed the DOM document, DOM element. Okay, so we can move on from there. Okay, but there are way more things available. So what you could do if you want to know more about it, you can go here and then you say TypeScript DOM types, and there is, you probably find out the GitHub repo for that, and there are tons of things here that you can check. Okay, let me just make sure that you can see it from here, and yeah, literally everything you can think, like anything you can think about in terms of DOM, you should be able to have access to them on this page. So let's continue. Now we have we were able to have our button. Let me close this. Let's keep pushing. So yeah, indeed, it's a good input here. So the as shouldn't be too often. It forces the compiler to consider something as a specific type. Okay, so indeed you can basically force it also this way, so using the first on line 7 as well. So now let's move on to right here. We have the first thing we have here, you will see that reducer. What is it? So as you can see here, reducer is an object that has something here that looks like a property. So that's just a property name. And then on the right, we have a function called reducer. Well, okay, let's look at that function, what that function does. That function takes something called a state and an action. Does that return anything here? So we have something that is returned right here, and then something returned here, and state. So if we look at these apps here, reducer, I'm gonna put it in line here. What is reducer? Reducer is then an interface. I'm gonna use an interface. Let me call that app state. So that's the state of our application. So, and then we're going to say reducer here, it's our app state. That's the state of our application. Okay. So now, what is to do? So some people will probably say, I'm just going to say that thing as a to-do, and to-dos is a function, right? If you do so, well, if I add something here like shops, I might have a problem, for example. I'm going to have a problem because it's going to say like, there is no, let me go here, and then it's going to say that doesn't match at all. It doesn't just work. Okay, so the typing is working here, but it's not complete. It is not complete. It doesn't really tell the full story. Because mind you, when you start building an application, especially if you've used Redux, that reducer here is basically a list of functions that will deal with that state on the left. So here, that value here is basically that thing there is the name of your how can I say that? It's just a property name in your store. So it's a data. It's a data. How can I say that? It's just part of your store, right? And what you pass on the right is the function that handles the way you change, you update that store. Okay, so we're gonna naively leave it like that for a moment, or if you want, you can already say this thing is a function that takes a state. We don't know yet what that thing is. It takes an action. We don't know what that thing is, and it returns a state. So which we don't know yet. But if we look at this is basically what it's saying, right? But we're saying to-dos here, but we're going to have more than to-dos. So here, instead of saying to-dos, I can just say this thing's going to be a set of strings. Because if I do this, now I can add more things here. I can say shops and then say this also reducer, and that will work. Because what I'm saying here is I have an interface, which is app state, which represents the state of my application. And I'm saying each of them will have a key, which is a string. So that's it. And then a function that handles how you update these information right here. So for our application at the moment, we only have the to-dos. Okay, so let's speed up that thing. So we have this. We're going to come back to it a bit later. Okay, so now let's go here. We create a store. It's a new store. Store constructor should work with one argument. Okay. Should work with one argument. That's a good point here. But let me go quickly here below. What do you see here below? We have the button, add event listener, and then inside here we're saying if value stream, we're gonna return something here. Okay. What do we have here? So here, I'm just going to say, well, I'm just going to extract the value from it, and I'm going to say that input value trim. So one of the things you can do in TypeScript is say you don't know if that input's gonna be there in a way, right? So what you could say is like, instead of calling input on value, you can just say call value only if that input exists, and then you can call trim here. So now in my code, I can just check here and then say that value, because I'm gonna need that value a little bit further. Okay. So now that I have this, I have my list of to-dos. So what is this to do? It's basically saying this is a label, and then there is a complete thing here. Okay. So this seems to be kind of typed in a way, but you can actually come here and then say, if you want to make it, because now I can say to do that and I have complete and label, but actually we're gonna leave it like that for the moment, and then we come back to it. We will come back to it when we have more to-dos or when we need to reuse this, because this is still fine at this stage. Like stage 2 is still fine, but when we go on stage 3, this is not fine anymore. Okay, so let's quickly move in here, because now we have a store that dispatch this. Okay, so everything here should be quite okay. Unsubscribe, what is that? Unsubscribe is a function. It takes, so we have available in vanilla JavaScript. It's TypeScript at this stage, but I think they're working on something pretty close to that in JavaScript. Okay, so what is state? So state is implicit. So as you can see here, I'm gonna have to probably say this is any. Well, if you say that, we have a rule at Hackages. If you put that any, you have to pay something close to €5. Yeah, €5. So you have to tell us what that any is to get your €5 back. So let me be completely dumb here and then assume that I just want to type this without really thinking too much of where it is used and how can I improve this. So what is it for you? As you can see, it's an object. State.todos, it's an object. So there's going to have a to-dos in there, right? So if I do this, and then I'm just adding, I'm actually typing inline right here. That's inline typing. Don't do that. Don't. I'm showing you, and then we're going to refactor that as we go. So there is a data inside, right? So if we do so, well, we don't know what data is. So I can say any, it's €5 I have to pay. But we're gonna fix that as we go. As you can see here, I don't have the error, that error that was here, and I don't have that error here anymore. Okay, so once I have this, I can refactor that. I can start refactoring this and saying, okay, what is state? Well, state, I don't want to think in terms of Redux. I'm just thinking in terms of what I see in the code right now. State is an object that has a list of to-dos, and each to-dos has a data inside. Okay, data property. That's basically it at the moment. We're going to refactor that in a few minutes. So now below, what do we have? This is good. There's nothing really to do here. And then how about this? So here, as we can see, we have an event. Okay. What is that event? How would you type this? So you can see event as a property target. So in TypeScript, you can say, for example, that's an event, right? You can type it, and as you can see, when I say event, right away, I have a lot of problems. I have a few more errors coming in. So, but technically speaking, there is a click on the button, so it's an event, right? You can be more specific, right? Depending on what you're doing, it could be a keyboard event. It could be a keyboard event. There is also that. There is also a mouse event. You can be really specific. As you can see here, event is basically the generic event, right? But that will do the job for us at this stage. So now when I have event, the question here is, what will be the type of this line here? What is it? So event target, if we read our code, we see we have event.target. So we retrieve that target, and then we say target.nodename, and then we say to lowercase triple equal button. Right? So somehow we're saying that the type of this target here is a button. We're checking on the fact that it's a button. So I'm just going to be completely dumb here and then say, okay, let's assume that this is an HTML button element. So once I do so, you can see that my error is gone. right? The error we had here is gone. So let me quickly remove that so you will see what's happening. So when I say this one here is an event, as you can see, we have some issue, and then when I bring those back, I have an event, and then I say this one is an event target, so we get a button, and then we have this code here that becomes quite easy. I mean, it's now type, okay? And then we have the state left. What is state? Well, we just say subscribe state, and then we return state. But based on what we have here, guess what? We actually state. We said here is these to-dos and, but is it the same? Yeah, it says store subscribe, store subscribe. So that state here is the same as that state right here. So now you can see that this is, you can't inline this anymore. So let's do it inline. What is it? We're going to say interface, right? And we're going to say that's a state, for example, and I'm going to add that here. So what am I doing? I'm just saying that this one has a to-do, and now I can say this is the state, for example, and this will also be the state, right? I'm just making my code. I'm just removing all the red-ish thing that are appearing in my code, okay? So very good. So now let's go back here. We have this working. Now, what is the next step? We're gonna come back and clean up a few things here. So if you now open the project, we're done with this, and we're going to type everything inside this store folder. So we have a few things. I gave you two things. I to do. Oh, there is an I to do. I action. There is an I action. First thing, I learned that you probably don't need this because I'm really using it for typing. It's not really like an interface thing. Yeah, it's an interface, it's a contract, but I'm using it for typing stuff, right? So now I can just go back inside my app here and then say somewhere, let me go back here. We had this to do. This to do look like a to do thing here. So as you can see, this thing is actually a to-do. And guess what? If I add something here, I'm gonna get in trouble because then it doesn't respect that contract anymore. Yes, it's an interface, it's a contract, so it doesn't respect that anymore. Okay, so that's one thing. And then we have something called an action. There is a type and there is a payload. Okay, is there somewhere here where we needed an action? Okay, we come back to that a bit later. So now we have the types, and we're gonna move at this stage. Let's just move this from here to here. Okay, and we're going to export that. Okay, so I'm exporting this, and now I can import that here as app state. Okay, so refactoring. So now, first thing, what do we have? We have the store. I'm going to start with the store. This is actually pretty good. So what do we have in the store? We have subscribers, reducer, and state. Subscribe text function, FN, right? We have dispatch text action, okay? All of this looks pretty good. So now let's fix it. First thing, what is subscriber? Subscriber is basically a list of, if you read the code, you say, okay, there is a subscriber here, and then this seems to be an array. This is the structuring of an array, so subscriber should be an array. And then FN is, what is FN? Well, if you go back here, you can see that FN is added in that list. And then somewhere here, we're basically adding for each subscriber here, we're just adding them and we make sure that they're available in the list of subscribe. And then somewhere here, when we have the notification, what we do, we say the list of subscriber, you loop through it and then you call the function fn. So you see if fn is a function that takes a value. And what is value? Value comes from here, and value represents the state. And what is state? State is basically the result of calling the function reduce, where we pass an action, which passes a state, and then an action right here. Okay, so now let's go again. And we're gonna type subscriber. So subscriber here is an array of function. That's basically what we saw right now. So how do you say array of function? I'm just gonna say function array. Yeah. I can see you already screaming like, no, don't write function. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It shouldn't be a function because now we know which function is this. Right? So what is that function? What subscriber, which kind of function that enters here? So it's the same idea as just to say here you will write function, but please don't do that. Okay? Because we know better. We know better. So fn is not a function. It's a function, but it has a signature. What is the signature of fn here? So we saw that when we loop through it, we're going to pass something like a state. We're going to pass this value, and this value here represent the state. Okay, so how can we go about this, right? So function here is something that takes, let me type it here. It's something that takes, let me go here quickly. I'm just gonna turn off. Yeah, very good. Let's go back here. So what is this? So it takes some, what is it again? When we call it here, we don't really see what it does. Yeah, okay, what do we have? Okay. So yeah, I'm waiting for your input. Tell me, what do you think is that thing? Is it? Yeah. What is that thing is? What is that thing? I'm losing my words right here. Yeah. Give me some input right here. How would you type function with what we discussed? Yeah, we're gonna take note of the Kenneth questions and answer that at the end. Okay. So people waiting, there is a little bit of delay, so I'm waiting for your input, and then we can actually fix those. What do we have? So we know this is a function, right? We actually don't have much information here. We can say there is a value that is passed, and this thing seems to be of type this.state, and this.state is the result of that call. Okay, so what do we have? So it means that we should probably go in here and then check this. So what is that function reduce does? So Samsung just says state and any. It returns, it have state and then it returns any here. So as you can see here, reduce actually takes state, and state is, we said any here, and then we have an action. So that we know already that we have something called action for that. And then, which means that dispatch itself takes an action. Okay. Okay. So then, which means that when we see the reduce, the function reduce call, the function reduce return itself a new state. Okay, so here, technically what we're saying is like whenever we call, where is it? Whenever we call this, that value here will just be the state. So we can just say this one is a state at this stage, but what is state? What is state? So somewhere here in the app, we created that interface state, but is that interface really match what we need for a state? Kind of doubting it. So someone says state and return any. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Let's just assume here I'm gonna pay €5 and then we fix that in a few minutes. Okay. So as we can see here, we have some stuff happening here. So maybe once we have this typed, then we will know exactly what that state is. Then we'll be able to replace that. So let's get going. Reducer. What is reducers? Right? Reducer is basically, as you can see, it's used over here. So we have a for loop, and that for loop goes through something, this dot reducers. So a for loop means you're iterating over, you're iterating over iterable. In JavaScript, we call them iterables. Okay, so an array is an iterable. So is an object. So maybe we should find a way to create a good balance here. Like, what is a reducer? So if we look at it a bit closer, we see that for each props in this, we go inside this reducer and then we access the prop, and then we call this, which is a function, and then we call that by passing state props, and then we pass the action. So reducer here seems to be an object that contains function. Reducer seems to be an object that contains function, like where each key is a function. An object where each key is a function. An object where each key is a function. That I'm repeating that just to make sure that you understand where I'm going with this. Okay, so let me make sure that I get that clear for you. So let's go back here. So here, this is an object, right? Now you see it's complaining. It's an object where each key, and a key is a string, and each key is a function. That's basically what I just said. It's an object where each key is a function, right? But since we know the signature of that function, we can now say here, that function takes a state, which is of type state, that I think will be the same thing here. So let me put it any for this moment. It takes an action, which is an action because we have that type, and it returns a state, which is any at the moment. So what do I have here? I just need to put a comma here. That's what I have. So, but that's reducer. So what I can do here, I can just say I'm going to create an interface, because if we check right below, we're good with this. So if I go back here, I will now say I'm just going to create an interface and call that reducers. And then my reducer is basically this. Take that, put it here, and now I know that this is my reducer, so I can just say this is like a reducer interface. Okay. listening to your question, reading your question at the same time. If you have any question, just ask them and we will take time to answer them at the end of the session, okay? So we have a reducer. So what is the state? So we still have the state here to fix. What will be the type of the state? So state is return here. State is the return of this function when it's called. So when we look at it closer, what it does is just take the list of reducers and then it's going to call this and then return the state here. So what is it? What is state basically for you? I'm reading your question. I'm reading your I'm reading your input, listening to you. What are you saying? So why interface over type alias? Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good question. We're gonna keep that for the at the end. We're going to keep the interface at the end. But I can give you a quick hint there. You can achieve the same thing with the type, but you're gonna have some restriction by using a type. An interface, I can extend an interface. A type, you don't really extend a type, for example. So I can start creating some combination of interfaces to build a more sophisticated interface. And I can redefine interface on like add partial interfaces as well. Okay. Yeah, indeed. That's a good input, Sebastian. So that's exactly the thing there. So what do we have? I'm waiting for your input there for state. Yeah, okay. What do we have? Yeah, so it says object, Merck says object. What do you think we're going to have? State is global. State is the global state which contains the to-dos. Okay. Let me put them side by side. So if we go back where we started, hopefully you can still see my screen. I just zoom a little bit out. So we have this app state that has to-dos, and we can add more of them here. And then somewhere here we have, we subscribe to the state, and that state contains to-dos and data. So basically that thing, actually, we can, if we keep it like that for a moment, we're just gonna discuss over that in a few minutes. So let me move that to this type folder. Okay, so that's the thing here, and then I can now say here I have a state property and interface, and that interface is used right here. Okay, so that seems to be our state. So if we go back here, we're saying that our state has to-dos and then some data inside. So let's just do it. So we go say, okay, is it the same state? So we go here and then we're going to say this is like a state. Okay, so state, and we need to bring it right here. Okay, so what do we have? So we're saying here like we have a state, and then we know that this thing will return. So now here, if you go right here and then you say this is a state as well, you see we have fn is a function that takes a state and then is going to return that we don't know, right? So and then we call this subscription and we loop through it, and we're going to add that that function. And then somewhere here we have the dispatch that takes an action, and it's called reduce, that take the state and the action that is passed, and then it's gonna notify. And the notifier, what it does is just loop through the subscriber and it's gonna call each subscriber with the state. Okay, and then obviously we have the reduce, so that take the state, and that's probably where, if we say here that this is the state, that's where we're going to see the first problem. Okay, we have, because we're saying that reduce, the function reduce is here, takes the state, and we said the state is something of type state, right? And this is the one we receive right here. So now we have an issue that, because basically here it's saying, yeah, element, this thing here is not, doesn't match the signature that we gave, like as a state, right? Because we're saying that state has a props. So element implicit as an any type, because expression of type string can't be used to index type state. Okay, so now if we say this is a state, there is a little conflict. We're getting into a little conflict there, and that's where we're going to have some we're going to see some more advanced things in TypeScript right now to fix this problem. Okay, so do you see the problem? Here we had any. That's what we had. Okay, so if we stick with this, this is working. We already have some level of typing. Okay, so I'm gonna turn that to state in a few seconds, because technically what we're saying that reduce takes a state, so it should be state and not any, 50 cents, and it takes an action and is going to return a new state, right? So what reduce? Reduce is the function reducer. So if we go inside reducer here, we see that we have this function reducer that takes initial state and then takes an action. So that's an action here, okay? And then we have the fact that we're gonna switch through action type and then call and update this, right? And then reducer is gonna return a state. So we know that this thing return something of type, yeah, containing the method. So Nicola is asking, shall we define a new interface to represent this object containing method? That's a good input there. So, but let me quickly finish on this part, because I have reducer, text state, and then action. What does that return? It returns state. So it seems like state is actually, this is state. This is the state of, that's basically the state of our application, okay? So we're going to go into some kind of refactoring, right? Because if we say this is the kind of state we're dealing with in the app, so what is this? What is this app? What do we have here? What is this? What is this app state? Here we said this is gonna be string and it's gonna take this function, which is basically a reducer function, right? So that thing here is a reducer function, and I can just go here and then say, let me quickly go here and then say export interface, and then say this is a reducer. This is that function here is a reducer. So we just do this, and then it takes tag and it's gonna return something, and that's a reducer. That's what we're reading. So when I tap it like that, now we're going into refactoring mode, right? And we're gonna clean up as we go. So this is the app state, and then we see the app state is used here, and the app state takes it says, okay, this is gonna be the state, and this is gonna be the reducer of that state. Okay, so if you want to make it even easier to understand, you can say as to-dos reducer, right? So then it makes it even easier to grasp, because that's basically what it does. Okay, so then we have the fact that now we have something called a reducer. A reducer is a function that takes something of type any? No, it's state. See? So now we see like there is this state that should be used here, but it doesn't really match. It doesn't match the state that we have over here. Okay? So maybe we can go step by step and say this is going to be an interface. This is actually our another state here, for example, and that state has properties like loaded, which is a boolean. Mind you, we're going to refactor that in a second, and then we're going to have loading, right? And what is this thing? Is a boolean as well, and then we're going to have some data, and that data is like a list of to do, right? So let me import to do's here. Okay, so that we have some state here. So that state could be used safely here, right? And now when we go here, we realize that what is returned here is that state, right? So if you look at this code now, you can see that we have a reducer that take a state, right? So that state here is indeed state, but as you give an initial value, this is not really necessary, but it still does work because TypeScript is going to infer that for you. It takes an action and it returns a state, right? You can even go here and then say, I'm just going to create a signature for that and then say this thing take a state and then an action and then return a state. And that's it. So that's just the signature, and you can use that to actually overload this function as you want. Because some of them, sometimes you're just not gonna need. You're not gonna need, for example, the state and stuff like that. So we see that on. We have a few exercise coming, so you will be able to see that further on. So you see this. So that's what we have right now. But we have a conflict. We have a conflict between this. So that state and that state right here, because that's a reducer. So the state that is used, that should be used over here, the state that should be used over here should be the state of that state here. So let me move that over here, and we're going to fix that conflict. So I have this state, okay? And we have also this one. So what I want to do here is to say this one is the state and it return state, right? So, but we have a conflict with this, right? So if we do so, we realize that, okay, state here represent, I need to import that export that indeed. So I can see that this one is right here. It's used here, and then where is my to do? Disappeared. Where is it? Yeah, because I don't need it anymore here. And then that state could be imported right here. Okay. So as you can see, everything here looks pretty good. We're getting there. So now, if we go back inside our application, we're going to see that this is not correct anymore. This isn't working anymore. How would you fix that? We're almost there. How would you fix that? Nope, let me close that. We're almost there. So we have three things here. We have the fact that we're using the state, so that's the state of our, like, the state for that reducer, the state that thing deals with. Okay, so that's what what is happening. Okay, and that's what we have here. And now we have also that state here that represented this one. okay? So any idea? Give me some input. Yeah, I know there is a little bit of delay, but we're almost there. We're almost there. Okay. So we have a state, and that state has a property to-dos in there, and then we have this. So maybe what we just have here is the fact that this thing here is accessing. If we go back inside our register, there is no to-dos property anymore. We could use data straight away, I guess. Yeah, generics. Yeah, generics might help. Yeah. By the way, we're almost done. Before you leave, make sure that we're gonna share a survey with you just to get a feedback on how we can improve this session, and then make sure that the next one we keep improving on the quality of the material. So yeah, feel free to go on that forums and give us some feedback. Those are really needed. It's the 4th one we're doing, and it has been going strong. So thanks for your support so far, and yeah, just give us your feedback, and we're going to improve as we go. But yeah, we have something. We have one blocking point here. So as we can see here, we have the once again that state and then 3 properties. Okay, so we can add a few more property in there, but then we have this state that has to-dos, and then to-dos will just access directly the data here. So what Nicolas suggests was like, yeah, inside state technically you shouldn't have this, but if you do so, let's go back in the app. So refresh, as you can see, go in the console. So now if I do learn, as you can see, I don't even have, right? I click here and I have cannot read property undefined. So if I go inside here, my collection, oh, we didn't even type this one anymore. We haven't typed it. So if I go here, I have that utils, and then here we said collection.length, and we don't get anything anymore, right? So yeah, there's definitely a to-do here, to-do property here, because then if you do so, you refresh here, you see it's working now, right? So we need that property here, okay? How would you fix that? Come on, people, we're almost done. Yeah. Yeah, anyone has a solution? You want to share that solution with us? Okay, so look, I can give you, I'm gonna give you a hint here. You can fix that using some generics here, and we're going to do something. Yeah, app state still has to-dos. Yeah, while state has data. Yeah, so if you think about it, app state is just list of states that we're going to deal with, right? So maybe here those are 2 different things. It could literally be 2 different things, right? So okay, let me quickly give you one way of seeing it. So that reducer here, if you really pay attention, I renamed that to do reducers. Okay, so to do reducers going to have it's basically the one handling the to-dos, so it comes from here. So here you can say this is basically the state for the to-dos. That's what you can say, right? So here you can rename that and say like this one is like to-do state. You can literally say like that's the one dealing with the to-dos, because if we have other state to deal with, you can actually rename those state and then give them a different thing here. So if I go inside my type, okay, I can go here and then say this is actually the one dealing with to-do, right? But by doing so, I'm kind of making it a little bit weird, but because I know that this is basically a list of that's gonna be a list of to-dos here. So what I can say here that's my state, and this gonna be something of type T, and I make it something of type T here, right? So which means that now my reducer knows that it's gonna deal with something of type T here, and then you just have to give it also then you need to turn that into generics as well, okay, because your reducer will be dealing with one specific type. Okay, so if you do so, you say like, okay, app state, what are you dealing with? What is app state? App state is this one. So app state is going to receive I want to get you somewhere, but I think that we're going to destroy our code at this stage. I'm just gonna roll back for a second. Some exploration. So let me give you some simple solution here. We're just going to say this is a to-do state. So to-do state at this stage, right? If you do so. So we keep it simple, to-do state, and we go here and then we say, okay, that list is basically, this is a to-do state, right? It literally deals with to-dos. So you can fast forward, you can actually just say this is, so I won't have to change and everything. So I can just say this is the state, right? So if I want to do it this way, I just have to go back here and then say here below I'm dealing with this state, and then state is used right here. So I can go back inside my type and then say I'm going to use this other state here. But yeah, if I do so, this is fixed and this should also be fixed. Technically speaking, we have added types into our project, right? That's technically speaking, we added a few types. There are a few more things here that we need to deal with, but that will be part of the videos you're gonna find on our YouTube channel, because I'm gonna redo that as a set of videos. But the question here is, how can we make sure that these things are actually merged and they can be reused together? So let me do this. The repo is available. I'm going to push where I am right now, and I give you a few days to basically send me some proposal, right? Some solutions. And in a week from now on the Hackages Learning, you will access the solution for that, a possible solution for that. So I'm giving you some hints. You have generics possible. You can use generics. Here, as I said, if you start saying to-do state, you're gonna get into some trouble because you start being so specific, which is good. But then as your application evolves, you're gonna have different kind of types, different kind of state to manage in your app. Okay, so this is a to-do list. It's not that difficult, but in a bigger app, that won't really work. Okay, so the other thing here is, like, instead of using const here, you can, for example, use enum to start creating your list of constant, and you will see in the video next week how these can help you leverage something in TypeScript called index type. So just to finish on that, I'm gonna show you something about index type, and then I will take some questions, okay? So let me take some code here. So here I have a function. Just let me know if you can see this, and then we're gonna wrap up on this thing. So I'm talking about something called index type. Okay, so and you will see how you can leverage that in the follow-up exercises. Okay, so I have this function. Okay, so I'm going to take some existing code and explain that as we go, and we should be done in exactly 5 minutes. So I have an interface here, right? That interface here has, let me see, overwrite, okay? So that interface here has 3 properties, right? So, and then we're going to create a property. So let's say const car, and then we say this is a car. Okay, so what are we going to add there? We're going to say, okay, we're going to say like the manufacturer is let's say, since this is a car, I'm just gonna put an equal here, and then I'm going to say for example Toyota, and then the model. We're going to say, for example, RS, okay, and then we're going to add a year and say 2000, I don't know, 10, okay. So you see this? So now if I go here and I call the function plug, you probably know that function already. So I'm going to say, well, that function plug takes a car. And out of that car, I want to retrieve some properties. That's basically what that thing says. So it's property names. It's an array of things. Okay. If I want to say, for example, I want to take manufacturer or year, you will see that it returns me 2010. Okay. So now if you go back here and then you say I want to add for example the model, you see that it returns the thing. So plug is a way to dive into the object and retrieve the things you need. Okay, so now let's see how you can leverage TypeScript to make this thing much stronger. Okay, so plug, for example, is you want to make sure that people cannot say, for example, let me take here owner. Okay, so as you can see, it says years and owner is undefined, but that is JavaScript. You can't control that. You can't really do much with that. But if you use TypeScript, you can start restricting the way people use it, right? So the way you will do it, you will just say here, since what plug does is it's gonna read through the thing, and then it will read through that list and then return the object key here. So it's gonna return the key over here. So basically here you can say T, we're going to use generic here. So I'm going to add generic to this. So I'm going to say this is gonna be T, so of type T, whatever you want that thing T to be. In our case, it could just be the car, okay? And then we're going to say like property name is a key of T, okay? So I'm just gonna say this is going to be an array of properties. And what is K? K is, the way you say that, you just say it's an extension of it's an extension of key of T, right? So I'm saying that whatever that thing is, it should be an extension of that. So now you can see here it's complaining. It's saying, I don't know what that thing is, so I'm just gonna remove it because it's not a string anymore. And then our function return something of type, it's an array, so it returns something of type key, and you're going to have an array like this. So that's basically what you get. Okay. So now the question is, how do you use that? How do you use that here? So as you can see now, right below, I see it's complaining about the fact that this is type string is not assignable to types year or manufacturer or. So what is this? So what you're basically saying here is like, when I say a key is an extension of that. For example, I can say cost props, and then props is, for example, key of car. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm just gonna use a let because it's not gonna let me do that. So if I go here, you see that by saying key of, props can only be manufacturer, model, or year. That's it. That's all it can be. You can't go over that. Okay, so you cannot actually do anything here. So what you're going to do here is say, okay, I want this thing to be the model, right? So if I say anything that the properties that are available in here, that thing's gonna crash. It's just gonna say there is no such a thing. I'm adding a property, and then it says there is no such a thing. So I'm showing you this because you can leverage that in the exercise we just did right there. Okay, so next Thursday you're going to have that video online on Hackages Learning, and I will be able to guide you into more advanced stuff. Okay, questions? I take questions. Where were the questions? Where are they? We're done for today. So questions, answers. Well, we had a few questions. So Kenneth said, let me read Kenneth's question. So Kenneth said, can we see it again? Yeah. If you have time at the end of the workshop, I have more abstract question at the DOM. TypeScript, the typing of advanced listener is, yeah. Can you maybe go over step by step? Oh, okay. So you're saying that TypeScript, the typing of add event listener is HTML UI list element. Okay, so okay, let me quickly go there. So we go inside the app, and then we're saying that you go inside the app, and then we're saying here, you're saying that can I see it again? Yeah, I'm going to share that with you on GitHub. I'm going to share this version on GitHub right away. Actually, what I can do that live, so you know you have it. So it's here, and then I'm just going to say, oh yeah, no, that's not the one. Not even that. Yeah, it's this one. So it's here. I'm just gonna make sure that you have it. So let me put it in a branch that I'm going to call step 1 partial solution. Okay, and then let's just do this. So and then we're just gonna do step. Okay, tapping too fast. There you go. So you have it. Okay. Okay. So yeah, it has been pushed, Oliver. So you have it there. So if we go back here, Kenneth questions is basically like why is the tab? Where is it? So yeah, at the DOM TypeScript, the typing of add event listener. Where is it? No. So to the list here. No, so basically it says to-do list is a UI list element which has a property add event listener. That's basically what it's saying there. Okay, so that's it. And then it says the event itself. So it's you have access to the this, which is the URL inside, but you have access to the mouse event. So here you have mouse event, or in my case, I use event here. That will still be that will still work. So, but you also have access to some way to overload them. So let me check that, because if I go here and then I say to do list add event listener and I open this, you see that I have two options. So I have the one where I just said a type, like we did, click, and then the listener. So here I say I pass this, and then I have a way to pass the listener, which is just an event listener, or just it's just an event listener basically. Questions? One, can you be reached somehow if we have any other questions on the later stage? Yeah, you can. So you can either basically make a pull request on the repo and then we can discuss there, or you can send me an email to 007@hackages.io. You can send an email there and you're going to have an answer. Yeah, 007@hackages.io. YouTube doesn't want me to share that on the chat, so yeah. Yeah, okay. Cool. Questions? Yeah, indeed. Indeed, with the plug. It does help with that. Any more questions? So, we have a few more webinars coming soon, and we have some videos, some content we're building at Hackages for Hackages Learning. So I just want to know, is there any topics you want to cover in TypeScript specifically? Is there anything you want to see in the coming weeks? Just let us know. Just write that down here, and then we're gonna make sure that we take note of them, and we're gonna make them available in the coming weeks, right? James Bond at Hackages. Yeah, that's exactly the email. Yeah. Hackages.io, yeah, James Bond at Hackages.io, but it's 007. Yeah. Any? Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I didn't want to go into that, Nicholas, that 007 at, but that's the thing, yeah. So, what is the thanks, Sebastian, very good. So what is the any topics you want to cover in the coming weeks? We just shoot. We're going to take note of them and make sure that we incorporate that in our material. So any other questions that I haven't answered? Yeah, okay, sounds was good. Everything looks pretty good. Okay, people. If there is no more input, we're gonna stop here. So don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channels. Oh, anything about D3 probably? Just a suggestion? My gosh, any D3 expert that want to jump on the on our webinar, because I'm not, and we don't have D3 gurus at Hackages. Maybe Todd knows D3 gurus. Todd, say something. Todd, we're listening to you. We're reading from you. Okay. Okay, so any more input there? Okay, people, seems pretty good. And I'm gonna wish you a good day. Stay safe, keep coding. You know where to send your questions, and don't forget to go online on Hackages, community.hackages.io. We have some great content coming there, and we actually have a surprise for you at the end of this month as well. So go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube. We have a newsletter as well, and yeah, rock your day. Cheers, people.